Doctors of Reddit, what's the biggest case of faking it you've ever seen? Nurse for an ophthalmologist here. Had a 21-year-old new patient claiming to be completely blind from a sudden and severe glaucoma diagnosis from a previous unknown doctor. Would feel around while walking, try to keep eyes rolled back into his head. The whole 9 yards. He said he is a famous YouTube rapper that is now unable to make videos or earn a living. I exclaimed to have heard of him before and very excitedly asked him to search and show me his YouTube channel on my phone so that I could subscribe. He took my phone out of my hand and effortlessly found the YouTube app and typed away in the search bar. Oh, and of course his eyes were back to normal and focused. I am amazed he didn't ask for a discount, or to have a free checkup for some exposure. Sort of along the same idea. Working at a pharmacy, we saw a guy come in to try and get a refill on some pain meds that had no refill. After pleading that his ear really hurt, we told him again we couldn't refill it. One of the other employees saw his step into a side hallway and take a pencil and jam it forcefully into his ear repeatedly, drawing blood. He calmly left and went to the ER. He came back a few hours later with a prescription for pain meds. It amazes me that people will risk permanent deafness for a fix. Edit, yes I get it, I've never been addicted to drugs. Stop bringing it up, you're like an broken record. Physical therapist here. Working mom comes into the clinic with her infant in a stroller. She's limping like she's got a nail in her foot. Wincing in pain and tears in her eyes. She's crying during her visit with the PT. None of us think she's faking it. She limped out of the clinic. I glanced out of the window and saw this woman bounding down the sidewalk. Hips swaying, full stride, going places. We were all fools. To what end did she fake an injury? Sympathy? You guys don't prescribe, right? I had a patient when I worked in ICU that was sedated and on a vent. A family member showed up out of nowhere and was staying day and night. I got pretty suspicious of them because they were clearly lying about knowing this person. Just talked to the fake family member about how it must have been sad since they just celebrated their birthday a week or so before getting ill. This person said it was a wonderful party and such, to which I replied their birthday hadn't occurred yet and wouldn't for months. Turned out when security came it was a homeless person who snuck in and found a room with a sedated patient and decided to make it a place to stay. Needless to say, security to enter the ICU was absolute shit. It's pretty smart though. Had a patient when I was an intern feigning blindness. She would constantly be playing on her smartphone, only furiously trying to hide it when someone from the care team came into her room. The best was when my attending one day strolled past her room and threw his hand up in a highly exaggerated hello wave. She started to throw her arm up but caught herself halfway through, then threw her hand back into her lap and pretended to be staring off into nothing. I would never have expected pretending to be blind to be such a commonly faked issue, but reading this thread has changed my mind on that issue. A friend of mine likes to stick out her hand for a handshake when people come in feigning blindness. Nearly all of them instinctively meet her handshake. It's great to watch. Edit, I am very much aware of the different types of visual deficits, thanks for your concern. I once saw a patient who had been faking paralysis of the legs for years. Used a wheelchair, never walked, etc. Old records showed extensive imaging, neurology consults, and other tests that proved the patient had full function of all extremities. Family/friends were just going along with it. Not sure if it was really conversion disorder or if the patient had some secondary gain issue. That's so baffling. I'm a part-time wheelchair user and I don't know why anyone would choose to make the world more inaccessible to themselves. If it's that extensive, it definitely qualifies for mental illness if there's nothing wrong with the body. Not a doctor, but I was in the ER one night and there was a seeking drug addict who literally only acted in pain when there was staff around. You ever see those videos where the little kid is fine and then they spot a parent and then bawl, then immediately stop and be fine when the parent is out of view? Exactly like that. sat fine, no movements or wincing or noises, then wailing when a nurse was in the same vicinity, then back to fine when they left. A few weeks ago, I had a vulva biopsy. I was petrified of this procedure, and I didn't know how to ask the doctor if I'll be given pain meds, because of people like this. There is no way to even frame the question without sounding like a drug seeker. I ended up not needing anything at all, but still. Figure it's a legit question, but you can't ask it. When I was a medical student, I worked in the pediatric side of the emergency room, and we would give popsicles to all the kids. One afternoon an 8-year-old came in with his father, and I asked what was wrong. The kid couldn't remember what he complained about to his dad, and the dad couldn't remember why he brought his kid in. The kid's mom was a nurse, she was working at another hospital at the time, and she was the one that would keep track of these things. Anyway, after a few minutes trying to figure out what was going on, the kid asked, "So, can I have my popsicle now?" The kid was 100% healthy. Unfortunately, we reinforced bad behavior, and both the kid and the dad subsequently left with popsicles. The patient claimed to have all kinds of illnesses and would cough every minute or so. Have you tried coughing when you don't need to? It's like a normal cough, but you take the subwoofer away. Now imagine that, but 10 times more fake. Take the subwoofer away, damn, it really makes sense when you put it like that. Haha, I cough as a nervous tick. It's always been something I've been embarrassed of, but I figured it was pretty inconspicuous. I remember when I finally got the courage to tell my friends I have a nervous tick, and I'll never forget they said, "Is it the coughing?" We figured there's no way you could have a cough for 2 years straight. Also, they do sound pretty fake. Sometimes my friends will tease me by doing an equally fake sounding cough right after I do. Guy came to ER, I was a nurse at the time, for stomachache. When asking him about history, he randomly mentions a fight with his girlfriend where she left in a tizzy and he fell asleep on the couch. 20 minutes later, when we see the CT, he has a satellite cable remote wrapped in a condom lodged in his rectum. I suppose he intended to frame her. Didn't get to hear the conversation he had with the doctor. I was curious how he was going to explain why she was nice enough to wrap it in the condom. Why would they start with a CT scan? Frame her for putting stuff in his butt? But, that would have made his stomach ache. Sounds like someone didn't plan it all the way before inserting stuff in his butt. One time my roommate, who is an ICU nurse, came to see one of my indoor soccer games. During the game, a player on the other team went down hurt and started screaming in pain and swearing and rolling around while holding his ankle before he was eventually helped off the field. He then limped over to where the fans sat and watched the rest of the game brooding in silence before he left early. After the game, my roommate told me he was going to go over and see if there was anything he could do to help, until he saw that the guy was limping on the wrong leg. I'm a surgery resident. When I was on my trauma rotation, we had a patient come in after an MVC, with question that maybe the patient had seized and that had caused the accident. So he's in the trauma bay, and starts shaking. The trauma nurse goes, "Oh, this isn't a real seizure." And the patient stops shaking, sits up, turns to the nurse, and yells, "You don't know a fucking thing about me." Prisoner came in with signs and symptoms of a big stroke. At that time, the protocol was to get a non-contrast head CT to rule out a bleed and then give TPA, a powerful clot-busting drug that's only worth the risk if the benefit is to mitigate a major stroke. So that's what happened. Later in the course, he got a little carried away and started embellishing his story with symptoms that didn't make sense with his stroke diagnosis, and that's how we figured out he was faking it just to get some time away from jail. I work at a jail and briefly worked at a prison. Some of the inmates refer to it as going on vacation. Not a doctor but nurse. I once read a specialist's consultation report, and at the end of the report the actual diagnosis given was fictitious ailment. Oh dang. Is a fictitious ailment something that can be noted in their medical records? I think I might have that. We had a patient faking a seizure, so my supervisor told one of us to get the brain needle. The patient made a miraculous and swift recovery without intervention. That's the best part about most of these stories, when they make up some form of fake machine so that the patient stops faking. Cracks me up every time. Not me, but know an army doctor who prescribed everyone with cold-like symptoms or sore legs to stay in bed for the whole day. Then next day half as many people with symptoms showed up. I knew a guy in my training unit who had been given bed rest orders by the doc after getting some dental done, wisdom teeth extraction if I remember correctly. They were excited for the first day, but by day 3 they were begging to be taken off bed rest out of boredom. If he didn't prescribe Motrin, then he was the one faking it. Subscribe for more hot Reddit takes in your inbox, guaranteed.